You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network.
Oh, hey, guys, this is Joe Sinnott speaking for the Epic Marvel Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Epic Marvel Podcast. This is Captain America, episode 2B, covering a period of Captain America, 1969, right up until the end of 1969. I am your host, Kurtis Findley.
And I'm your Captain America host, Drew Ivers.
And what issues are we going to talk about today, Drew?
We are looking at the second half of Volume 2, so that's issue 110 through 119.
Yeah, and this is the beginning. This is the entire, very short Jim Steranko run, the very famous Jim Steranko run that he did for a very short time. Man, I can't believe he was at Marvel. He made a huge splash at Marvel in such a short time, doing so few issues.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously his work on Nick Fury, and then this is pretty much his last Marvel work, his last significant work. I think he did one or two more issues in later in 1969 here, but I think this is his last and some of his greatest stuff here.
Yeah, you can really tell, even if you go back to like the early Shield issues, what was he doing before this? X-Men before this even. Like, he came in with a bang, he did amazing work, and he also improved a great deal in this short amount of time as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at some of those Shield issues that he did, the early ones, while it was groundbreaking stuff, he was definitely still kind of a little bit more Kirby-ish or Romita kind of, and following those lines, and then slowly getting to be more and more, I guess you could say, quintessential Steranko.
I think he's definitely, in my head, he's tied together with the 60s and kind of the hippie movement a little bit, and sort of getting into that psychedelic era that, did clash with what Stan Lee was trying to do, obviously. But I think even in a book like Captain America, you can't help but see some of that psychedelia come in.
Absolutely, yeah, and we'll definitely talk about it as we get into those issues. The other half of this book is a combination of John Romita and Gene Colan with one more Kirby issue. So I just named 4 incredible artists: Steranko, Kirby, Romita, and Colan. Wow, in one book, in half of one book.
Yeah, it's quite the lineup, and I think if you're gonna lose Kirby, like we talked about in the first half of the book here, you'd be hard pressed to find greater replacements for him.
No kidding. Wow. Okay, so last episode I said that we didn't have any listener comments because I forgot to ask for listener comments. Well, I have them this time, so let's just take a couple minutes here and see what people thought about this volume, the Epic Collection, Volume 2, Coming of the Falcon. So over on Instagram, a guy named Thumbs Up 1981 says, "The cover of this one was always hilarious to me." He's talking about the cover to the Epic Collection, which is the same as Captain America number 117.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "The way Falcon is positioned in front of the villains, along with the look on Captain America's face, looks to me like he was chasing someone and ran into a disco joint that he doesn't approve of."
Yeah, his first costume here, and obviously we'll talk about that in more detail when we get to that issue. But I agree with their titling of the book and with their choice of the cover here. But the first costume for Sam Wilson, the Falcon, with the big necklace and disco suit is pretty funny.
It is, and it's interesting because it's in 1969, a sign of the times. I think that shift. I think you see a lot of these kind of disco-ish influenced costume designs. I don't know what the proper term of this kind of fashion is, but the disco era is coming up, and it's starting to make some movements. And you see this in Hawkeye's costume when he turns into Goliath, is a similar kind of thing. And I think both of those costumes might be, I think they're both Gene Colan designs, maybe.
And I'm just thankful we don't have we have the big V exposing his chest, but at least we don't have like big collars or anything on him.
Yeah. Okay, let's save some more Falcon talk for later when we get to those issues. Let's see who else is on this list here. Yun Gromer0 says he's reading it right now and enjoying it so far. Abrahamisms says reading it at the moment. The first half of the book really drags at time for me, which is interesting because I didn't feel like it dragged, especially comparing it to the volume that came before this.
Yeah, I think that's some of Kirby's greatest stuff in the first half.
Yeah. He says Kirby Lee era Cap is nowhere near as exciting or dynamic as the work on Fantastic Four. I might agree with that. Certain parts of Fantastic Four, because they had such a long run, there are definitely draggy moments in their Fantastic Four as well.
Yeah, I think if you're comparing the two books, I would probably choose Fantastic Four as well, just because of the entire cast as a whole.
Yeah.
I think we kind of touched on that in the first part of this epic collection. Cap always suffers a little bit when it comes to the supporting cast, but when you have four main characters like the Fantastic Four, it really allows a lot of flexibility in the stories.
And it's not just the heroes, but if you think about the Captain America villains in here, we have Red Skull, we have random communist leaders, and we have the Trapster, and we have Dr. Faustus. But if you look at Fantastic Four, it's like, Doctor Doom and the Frightful Four, Galactus, and the cast, the villain cast in Fantastic Four is way more exciting. Annihilus and Blastar, and you could just go on and list all these amazing villains.
Yeah, I think if you're looking for pretty solid action and fights and kind of the fisticuffs that make up this book, I think you'll be very happy. If you're looking for more cosmic and more of a family book like that, where you have those strong interpersonal relationships, I think Fantastic Four wins pretty easily in that comparison.
Yeah, I think one of the main differences in terms of the personal side of things is the Fantastic Four. I feel while they do touch on very deep personal issues, and especially with like Ben Grimm and his struggle with the way he looks and such, Captain America, this era of Captain America here in this volume really digs into the psyche of Captain America and who he is and how he thinks and how he feels. And we talked a lot about PTSD in the last one. I feel like that comes across a lot better here than in Fantastic Four, just the depth of characters.
Yeah, I think in some parts it does ring not hollow, but it maybe doesn't come across as effective as it can, because there's a lot of thought bubbles, a lot of monologuing, since it's really just Steve Rogers on his own for a lot of this. So I think the book suffers a little bit because of that. But as we'll see in these, especially in the Steranko issues, there's some pretty heavy imagery, and there was a little bit in the first half of the book as well. But there are some pretty strong themes of loss and trauma in this book.
Okay, a few more comments over on Facebook. Travis says, so excited for your covering Captain America at this time in comics. This time in comics was the building blocks to everything we have today. Love the episodes that cover the 60s and 70s. So thanks for that, Travis. I hope you enjoyed part one. Austin says, a great collection, which was a turning point from Lee and Kirby with Steranko and Colan art. Also, I always loved the Captain America and Falcon friendship. I think that they are one of the definitive friends in comic history, and this run has some bumps, but just starts to get better. And then Nick says, personally, I'm not going back that far. I'm starting at volume 10, looking forward to your thoughts. Well, Nick, I think that if volume 10 is the JMD Mateus stuff in the 80s, so I think if you liked that, I actually do think you would like this book. It's not too far off from like the sensibilities. This book actually reads a lot more modern than a lot of the 1960s stuff, I think.
I think if you're a fan enough to go back and read older Cap, which certainly, volume 10 in the early 80s is, I don't see why you wouldn't enjoy some of this material. Yeah. It may not, it may depend on your tolerance in general for Silver Age comics, but there's a lot of quality stuff in here.
Well, that's it for our comments. Just before we move on, I want to mention that our episode is brought to you by Dying Breed Collectors, and you can save 10% on any Epic collection that you buy by using the code Epic Marvel Podcast at your shopping cart. And you can save 15% on Generation X Epic Collection Volume 1 for the month of December. That's a December special using that same code. Okay. Let's tackle the second half of this book here. We're going to start with issue number 110. This is the very first Steranko issue, and it's called No Longer Alone. In this one, Rick Jones shows up and aids Cap in a fight with the Hulk, and then he sticks around to become the new Bucky Barnes, which is kind of an interesting little diversion here. Rick Jones, this period for Rick Jones is kind of a wild ride because he has been a Hulk supporting cast member since the very beginning of the Hulk, but now he's kind of stepping away and he's going to kind of, go on his own path, his own journey apart from the Hulk. And this is just kind of the very first stepping stone to that. And then a few issues later, we're going to see he moves on to something else. But yeah, Rick Jones shows up and kind of forces his way into Cap's life and becomes Bucky.
Yeah, Cap is having some self-reflection here, and it ties into seeing Rick in the Bucky costume.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really put much of a fight. I mean, he's kind of realizing that he might need to open up a little bit and let that happen.
Yeah. This issue, it really, really showcases Steranko's art. It's basically just two big battles. That's kind of composed. That's why my recap was so short, because there's one battle at the beginning with the Hulk, and then they switch gears, and then they go and then have one battle with Hydra. And it's just a big slugfest. It's very exciting. Not a whole lot of character development or anything like that. That's coming up in another issue, but this one is just kind of wall-to-wall action.
Yeah, I think the price of the book is worth it just for these 3 Steranko issues alone. And I really like, which we'll get to, obviously the Kirby issue that kind of splits them up. I think for those 4 issues, if that's all that was in this book, I'd be pretty happy. It's this one especially, just the coloring, getting to see the Steranko Hulk. Even though it's a brief fight and he doesn't really interact with Captain America too much, but yeah, it's just a gorgeous issue all around. And we get to see the first appearance of Madam Hydra here.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Madam Hydra makes her first appearance. Very, very striking. Now, we got to talk about this artwork because there is just so much incredible stuff here. And while we have to give credit to Kirby for defining a lot of how people attack comics these days when they draw, maybe not these days, I think actually a more influence is taken from the stuff that Steranko does here. And if you flip back through the first half of this book and look at any page, you can see Kirby stays very, very rigid with his panel layouts. He sticks to a 6-block grid or 4-block grid or something like that, and he never has overlapping panels or panels that are diagonal or anything like that. And then right off the bat, we have it's on the third page of this story, which is page 255 in the Epic Collection. We get 2 huge panels, one with the Hulk at the top and another one with Captain America running at us at the bottom, and then 3 inset panels that are kind of talking, that show us a little bit of stuff that happens before we see Captain America in his costume. That there, something that Kirby never does. And then if you flip back to the page before this, we have 3 tiers of panels, and the middle tier is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panels. Each one, it's Captain America or Steve Rogers in blue, and each panel is getting closer and closer and closer to his eye. Very cinematic, like the camera is moving in closer and closer. Again, something Kirby would never think of doing.
Yeah, it's obviously a very different book from the outset, and I think I don't know if someone like Will Eisner influenced Steranko directly, but there's a lot of him in here. I think in the DNA of not only the panel layout, but just the fluidity of the characters. I think Steranko does a really good job with the fight scenes and the motion lines here and kind of breaking up that rigidity, especially with the weapons and Cap's shield, just kind of bouncing all over the place. It's really an exciting read.
It is. Yeah, I think you're spot on with the Will Eisner influence. The very first page of this story, the top row of panels where it's got this noir back alley New York, like gritty, like that's pure Will Eisner, but then also the person in a shadow walking towards us in these multiple panels, very, very reminiscent of something you'd see in the Spirit.
Yeah, and even just something little like the title of the issue kind of being graffiti on the brick wall there,
totally.
instead of big orange and red letters like Kirby and Lee would do.
Yeah.
It just gives a totally different vibe for the book.
Now, I know that none of the colorists are credited in this book. This was an era when colorists they weren't actually known. Steranko did a lot of coloring, and I don't actually know if he colored these issues or not. I probably should have Googled that to see, but it looks like it could be him.
Yeah, I show him. I showed him as creditor on the 3 issues in here, just based on comic book database.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It really is his style with
it's beautiful.
The very very bright, like there's times when the characters are completely magenta, and his it's way more bright than what we saw before, even though the other ones use a lot of really bright yellow in the Kirby issues. These ones just had a different flavor for it. It's just a different sensibility, and you can tell that it's a completely different person coloring this.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to. I mean, like on page 256, you have the Hulk at the top panel, page 4 of the story, who's obviously green, but then right below that, all of the army soldiers have green flesh color as well.
Right. Yeah.
And Captain America is blue quite a few times through the issue here. So, and I believe Madam Hydra is green throughout his few issues. So he's definitely not afraid to take some risks here.
I think that it seems to me like he understands how to use color to bring about depth more than whoever was coloring the Kirby issues. Because while the Kirby issues are fine and there's nothing wrong with the coloring, he just they don't go out of their way to add to the depth of the scene. So I want to show you, let's see, on page 261, which is page 9 of this story, the very top row, where Captain America is looking at Rick Jones, who's injured and laying on the couch there or whatever. And Rick is in this kind of a dark purple hue. And it really shows us that he's kind of forward and in the shadow, but it really frames all of the action, especially since the purple hue kind of goes up the lamp on the right side, and the back, like the upper wall that goes over top of the panels at the top there, is sort of a purpley brown color. It really draws the focus of Captain America, and as he's walking across the stretch of panels into the doorway.
Yeah, it's that 4-panel sequence is pretty nice to look at, and the one on the page prior where Cap is staring intently at Rick, and they're both this beautiful shade of blue as well. It's just your eye is just drawn a lot more to these pages than some of the preceding issues.
And then if you switch over to page 263, which is page 11 of the story, and you look at this page here, it's like there's the top row, but Captain America's face, or Steve Rogers' face, is so close up that it's almost a panel of its own. And then you have a second skinny panel, and you have, then below that, you have a block of panels where one of the tiers on the right-hand column is 4 tiny, tiny panels. This is something you don't usually see in this era of comics, is panels that small.
I kind of like that sequence. I just remember reading that for the first time and kind of almost feeling claustrophobic as they go into the manhole, the sewer there.
Right.
I don't know if that was the intent, but it's the verticality of those tiny panels certainly felt that way to me.
Yeah, and then the panel below it, when they're in the sewer, and you have a really, really small Rick Jones, and he's kind of the focal point, and you can feel the claustrophobia, and Steranko really plays with that here too, because he puts Cap in the foreground, in the corner, which adds part of the frame to kind of block your view of what's surrounding Rick Jones, and then you have a part of the the sewer, the brick, the black and kind of grayish brick that's coming up the other side, it all adds, and then you have the pipes and everything and the water rising, it all adds to make it seem like the space is filling up really quickly with just all of this stuff.
Right before the surprise on the next page, that's for sure.
Oh man, and then the double page spread, it's just a brilliant page as well. Yeah, it's just incredible. Yeah, I mean, we could talk the entire hour and a half here about the artwork in these panels, but I think we better keep on going, otherwise we'll be here forever. Is there anything else you want to say about this issue?
No, I just, I do like the design of Madam Hydra. I think she's always been a compelling villain for me. Something you don't really see a lot in the 60s, having kind of the female villain like that, the femme fatale. And I think it really suits the book. Kind of get it going to like a James Bond, the evil Bond girl kind of feel.
Right. Yeah, and it's something we haven't seen in Captain America yet. All of his villains tend to be the very typical peak human physical male characters like Batroc and that kind of thing. So it adds a different flair to the type of fight that he's fighting.
So Captain America issue 111 is called Tomorrow You Live, Tonight I Die. And Cap foils an assassination attempt by Hydra and helps Rick train as his new Bucky. But later, Rick is drugged, has a slight hallucination, and gets captured. Cap goes on a rampage trying to find Rick and faces off a robot assassin named the Man Killer. And while he's cornered, Cap seemingly dives into a storm of bullets, and it looks like he gets killed as his costume and what looks like a Steve Rogers mask floats up to shore.
Yeah, okay, so man, we're going to talk so much about the artwork in this one as well. One of my favorite pages of Marvel Comics is actually this first page of this issue here, of the Penny Arcade. And it just is random shots of a penny arcade. But if you think about, let's think about a movie that's like at the very beginning of a movie, especially one made in the 70s or something like that, and all of the opening credits are at the beginning, and it's a montage of just different shots of the city or something like that interspersed with the titles. That's what this is. That's what I think Steranko is trying to accomplish right here. He's showing off all of these different little scenes, and the coloring is great because each panel has its own monochromatic color guide. And what I also love about this is there's no one way to read this page. All of the panels are arranged specifically so that there's no order to them. Because typically, when you read a comic, you check to see, and a lot of people do this subconsciously, you check to see where is the gutter line that goes all the way through one side to the next, and that kind of determines one tier of panels. But there is no point in this where there is a through line from one side of the page all the way to the next. And same with top to bottom. There's no top to bottom. So there are no actual rows and there are no actual columns in this page at all. It's very, very well thought out to show you that it's like this is just all happening all at the same time.
And it's extremely effective because you have, so obviously it's an arcade, and like you said, it's kind of cinematic, and there's probably dozens of movies from this era that start out this way, usually in New York City.
Yeah.
But every shot there's an element of danger or menace. There's the knife, there's guns, there's targets, there's someone shooting, there's a menacing gypsy, fortune teller machine.
Yeah.
It's great establishment of this environment and the danger here.
And then one of my favorite parts of this page is the one panel at the bottom that says your fortune is told on this card. And there's an arrow pointing down. So this, I think also subconsciously, when you look at this, you're drawn to that arrow, and your eye is drawn to the card and the hand, and then you flip over to the right, and there's the card that says tomorrow you live, tonight I die, and it's the only panel on this page that is normal colored. Like, the hand has an actual flesh tone, and the background is against some sort of gray metal. So that is our doorway. Now it's like the segue into the issue or into the movie. Now the credits are done. We're on to the movie part. So it feels like we're watching a movie while we read this book. I love it.
Yeah, and we get right into the action. I mean, we have the gypsy fortune teller machine as
The
part of the
trap.
trap.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and just kind of all the things that we subconsciously saw or noticed in that first page, the first sequence, kind of come into play here with the guns, and Cap's shield looks like a target, like we saw in the first page,
Yeah.
and it's just a lot of beautiful setup here to pay off in an action scene.
It is. It's really, really great. And it starts off with a bang, and then we're taken into a scene with Madam Hydra. And this is on page 5 of this issue, page 279 in this book. This one panel with Madam Hydra, with the Hydra symbol behind her and the smoke rising from the torches. What I like about Steranko is that he's actually not afraid of negative space, of leaving negative space. And this is another example of that. And also the cover to this issue, there's a lot of white, and it's on purpose. It's on purpose so that we are drawn to Captain America lifting up his shield. If you look at any of Kirby's covers in this book, Kirby crams every corner of every page, every cover especially, with just stuff. His and you know, he's good at it, and his compositions are really, really great, but he wastes no space. There's always the way that his bodies are posed in a way that will actually fill most of the page. The example I want to give of this is, let's see if I can't remember which issue number it is. It's the one where Captain America is fighting his clone. Let's see if I find that here.
And even throughout the book, throughout Kirby's art inside the book, you don't really ever see any white except for the speech bubbles. I mean, if there's nothing in the background, it's usually a solid color like a yellow or green or something, or sky blue.
Right.
So there's a lot more room to breathe when you are okay with the negative space like Steranko is.
Okay, it's 106. The cover to issue 106. If you look at the way that Captain America is posed here, where one foot goes all the way down to the bottom left corner and the other foot goes to the bottom right corner, and like his arm swings around, and his shield is at the top, and then the fake Steve Rogers takes up all of the rest of the space. Like, it is so full.
Mm-hmm.
And then a stark contrast to issue 111 that we're looking at now with the Steranko cover with so much white. But it works. I mean, they both work in their own way, but they're just a different approach to design. And what do you think of this psychedelic scene that's in this one on page 9 and 10? I forgot I was going to check my original issue to see if these pages are actually back to back or if they are facing each other.
I think it's pretty terrifying. I mean, it's I'm not going to speculate on what drugs Mr. Steranko did or didn't do, or
Yeah.
what if he was under the influence of anything, or just that's the way his mind works. But I have to imagine that the '60s psychedelia and the acid era that we were kind of going into as a country or as a world had an influence on this, because this is some pretty intense imagery here.
I love it. I think it's so great because in this first page we see what's his name? I keep wanting to call him Bucky, but it's Rick. We see Rick. He's running what seems like an endless journey, and I think this is talking about like his path leaving the Hulk. He doesn't know where he's going, and so he's just kind of on a mindless quest while all the world is watching him. He's got these big eyes that are all around him.
And I think you can almost skip the words on this page. I think they're kind of redundant. I don't know if that's just for some of the younger readers at the time, but they're essentially saying the same thing that you can see here. And I think it would probably work better without the text on it.
Yeah, I mean that's probably Stan. He likes to make sure that his words are on all the pages, but you're right. They are just kind of telling us what we already know. But the second page with the faces that are different colors that are coming down to this last face that as Rick is falling, he's tearing the face off of it, and there's a skull, and it's melting and it's exploding. There's definitely some Holocaust or like nuclear bomb allusions there. That's probably relating to the gamma bomb that created the Hulk in issue number 1 of the Hulk.
I'm familiar with Rick Jones. Obviously he's quite a large part of many of the early Marvel books. I don't really know on a personal level what he deals with, but I have to imagine this is relatively new for the character at this time, and probably hasn't been explored much up until this point.
Throughout his time on the Hulk, he is very down on himself
Hmm.
because he feels responsible for, because it was his life that was being saved. So he feels responsible for the state that Bruce Banner is in. But he's always kind of been a chipper guy. He had his teen brigade that helped him out, and he helped the Avengers in those early issues and such. But yeah, you can see through this one, especially now. I don't know if this is Steranko making this change or if this is Lee making this change, but yeah, Rick Jones definitely is trying to figure out himself out, and he's questioning his whole life. He's questioning his purpose, and it's coming out in this dream sequence as well. It's like he's got no point. He's wondering what he should be doing.
Yeah, you definitely feel bad for him. I mean, we're only an issue and a half in here to his career as Bucky, and he's already got kind of a complex going on.
Yeah.
Cap is not doing the best job making him feel welcome or happy to be a sidekick. So
The coloring remains to be very, very interesting in this one. I love it. If you go over to page 288, which is page 14 in the story, the first panel, we have a person in kind of a tan color with some really nice white highlights. But that's to bring the focus on Cap, who's actually in the rear view mirror of a car, and so his colors are a little faded there. And in this middle tier, we have a yellow panel, we have an orange panel, we have a black and white panel, we have a blue panel, all kind of trying to evoke a certain mood. Like the yellow panel, the thug that he's fighting is green. So I mean, there's supposed to be some excitement there, and then this orange panel showing, I believe it's the unconscious body of Rick Jones. So it's a muted color because he's unconscious, and then black and white. Like you'd think that maybe he even forgot to color this, but I'm pretty sure it's intentional. Like this could, because this cab driver here, or whoever he is scared. Like all the color is drained out of him, so all the color is drained out of this panel. It's just brilliant thinking. It's just something that I think if this was any other colorist, they would have just kind of colored it normal, like just with regular skin tones and whatnot.
it really keeps you on your toes. I mean, it's really fun to read because even on the next page here, on page 15 of the story, Madam Hydra is totally in shadow, in relief in the middle section, and
Yeah.
then on the bottom she's not quite black and white, but certainly stark coloring there.
Very, very cool stuff. Yeah.
And I really like the intensity of the chase scene here. I just having Captain America throw himself into the search for Rick, and the enemy, the what's he called, the man killer is pretty forgettable, I think. But throughout the whole chase sequence or fight sequence, I was pretty caught up in it.
Yeah, it's really well done, and then it's short, but it doesn't feel short. It feels like they get a lot accomplished in these like 3 pages or 3.5 pages or so. And then once we get to the end, there's Captain America has a fake face. So Steve Rogers, of course, we know because of hindsight, we know that Steve Rogers is definitely Captain America. But at this point, Steve Rogers wants to shed his secret identity, so he made a false mask that looks like his face, dropped it in the water, so that everybody believes that Steve Rogers isn't actually Captain America.
Yeah, and I think my biggest complaints with this half of the book have to deal with this section or that part of it, and as well as in the later story with the Red Skull, which we'll get into. But I don't know. I didn't really quite ever buy into the viability of that plan or the way that Steve carries it out. So it's a nice idea, and I think in looking at it from a more modern context, I think they're trying to set up a new sidekick for Captain America, a new secret identity, and they're trying to do some of these world building things for the book, but they don't really quite pan out. And I don't know if that's because of Steranko leaving or just the way that they were handled, but it doesn't always quite work for me.
It's also interesting that they happen as soon as Kirby leaves. So I wonder, it's always a question, how much influence did Kirby have on the actual storytelling and coming up with the plots and stuff? And right as soon as Kirby leaves, like, we don't see Agent 13 anymore, and we don't, and all of a sudden we have a new partner. We're bringing back Bucky, which is maybe something that Jack didn't want to do. I don't know. And then also the whole secret identity thing, which, Steve Rogers having a public identity is kind of the only hero, I guess, other than the Fantastic Four, the only hero in the Marvel universe that was able to do that. And so now Stan Lee is maybe trying to take that away.
Yeah, it just, I don't know that it's needed in the book, and I think there's some mechanical issues with it, but I don't know if maybe Kirby just was holding back and didn't want a sidekick or didn't want Bucky back. Certainly the loss of Bucky was a driving force in Kirby's run, and we saw a lot of the anguish over that.
Let's keep on going over to issue number 112. This is a Jack Kirby issue. This is his last issue before he leaves Marvel. It's called Lest We Forget. And this whole issue is just kind of a retrospective. Now that everyone believes Captain America is dead, Tony Stark gets the word, and he kind of takes us through this issue as he remembers the life of Captain America. And so we get scene after scene of kind of these memorable moments throughout Captain America's history. And we're not just talking about the modern or current Marvel history, but we're also talking about the original Captain America history going all the way back to the 40s. So on page 301, which is page 6 of this story, we got a montage of all of these Golden Age Captain America characters. In the top there's the Butterfly. And I had to look these up. The Butterfly is from Captain America Comics number 3 from 1941. There's the Ringmaster and the Circus of Crime. They originally appeared in Captain America Comics number 5. And then in this little middle strip here, that's the Unholy Legion of Beggars. And they're from Captain America Comics number 4. And then the bottom is the White Death from Captain America Comics number 9. And then in the bottom right corner, the Toadman from Captain America Comics number 7. Although I think he's just called the Toad in that issue. But yeah, so we get that. We get. Do you have anything you want to say about these characters here?
No, I think it's a great callback for fans, and obviously Kirby, being involved with the original book with Joe Simon, would be the perfect person to toss all these guys in here.
Yeah, and then from here we get the scenes of, Baron Zemo with his plan to kill Bucky, or his plan that killed Bucky. It wasn't really intentional, and then Namor finding him in the ice. So we get another little bit of an origin story of him coming back and joining S.H.I.E.L.D. Of course, Kirby worked on that book as well. He worked on Avengers. We have the Sleeper. And then we get, finally, at the very end of this issue, we get a little rundown of all of the most recent characters that we've seen, including Batroc, the Tumbler, the Swordsman, the Living Laser, the Exiles. Even Dr. Faustus is here, taking a punch at Captain America, which he never does in the issue that we did in the last episode. Strangely enough, it doesn't talk at all about Rick Jones becoming Bucky or the Steranko issues that came before this. It is literally just Kirby stuff. This is basically not just a farewell that Tony Stark is doing for Steve Rogers, but it's Tony Stark saying farewell to Jack Kirby for all that he's done, dating all the way back to 1941.
I love this issue. I mean, I don't know if fans were kind of eager to get on with the Steranko story back when this came out, but it's everything is beautiful in this issue in terms of, I think this is probably the biggest panel size that we've seen Kirby do throughout. There's a lot of four panel pages, a lot of one page splashes, and it just every inch is just amazing to look at here.
And there's even one page, it's the one with all the Golden Age characters, where the page is broken up not by straight panels. Kirby's doing something different here on his very, very last issue.
And I wonder, I have to wonder if this was the original intent for this issue. We get the framing with the mask and everything, and Iron Man, but I wonder how much of this was planned ahead, and how much they kind of just wanted a nice fill in here.
I actually kind of think that Steranko was behind, and this is kind of a fill-in issue that Kirby did. A lot of times when you get these fill-in issues and the panels are big, it's because the big ones are easier to do faster. And so that's why there's so many splash pages. And it's basically a clips episode. You get in a TV series, if they're behind schedule, they'll throw in an episode where it's like, oh, let's remember all of the best moments of the past season or something like that. And that's essentially what this is. Like, there's no furthering on in the story. It's not its own story. So it's not an inventory story. It's basically just, let's throw this in here. But it works well on so many levels, despite it being kind of a fill-in issue.
Yeah, and I love the title, or whatever they call it here. They call it an album issue on the cover, and they call it a souvenir issue in Stan's little justification for it.
Yeah.
The developments have been so shocking. We have to present this souvenir issue. And I like it a lot. I do. When I read through these again, I did put this at the end. I wanted to read through the 3 Steranko issues as a sequence, but I think it's you can't go wrong with more Kirby, and you can't go wrong with some of these iconic moments that he's recapping himself.
Yeah.
Remembering himself.
And then and it just serves for us to say goodbye to Kirby. And this is the last we're going to see of him on Captain America until he comes back in the 70s. Well, let's keep on going over to issue number 113.
Yeah, Captain America 113 is called The Strange Death of Captain America. We hear some of Madame Hydra's past and background as Rick Jones and the Avengers mourn Captain America until a trap is sprung and they are captured by Hydra. And all of a sudden, when all hope looks lost, Captain America suddenly appears to battle the hordes of Hydra. And along with Rick Jones and his help, they stop Madame Hydra, and Cap reveals that his plan was to give himself a secret identity all along.
Yeah, another really, really excellent issue. Man, I just look at these first 4 pages. And how much Steranko didn't color in this, but on purpose, and how striking it looks. Like, he uses the green monochromatic color palette to great effect in this Hydra base, wherever this is with Madame Hydra. Looks amazing.
It almost makes me disappointed in the cover, because the cover is okay. I don't think it's. I think you open the book though, and you see these pages, and they're much more striking than the cover lets on. I think this is probably my least favorite of the Steranko covers, but yeah, just Madame Hydra's background here is intense to look at. It's the flames and just the green and the white. It's beautiful.
Here's another character, kind of like Doctor Doom, who has a scarred face, and that is kind of her motivation to being the villain that she is. And the scar is a constant reminder of her violent upbringing, the trauma and the abuse that she's faced in the past. And so she is going to make people pay for it, and she's risen to power. So yeah, very compelling character, and a lot more, I think, a lot more interesting than even we get from the Red Skull.
Yeah, I think there's I don't know that a scarred face is a lot of motivation, but I did really find her struggle for survival, kind of being on her own, and her climb to the top here, pretty compelling.
Yeah, I mean, the scarred face is not. It's every time she looks in the mirror, she's reminded of her past and the injustice that's been done to her. So, I mean, I think that's kind of I guess a shorthand so that we can see, because she always has her hair covering up that side of her face. So it's part of her visual design that she has a traumatic past.
So, in your opinion, in the middle of the book here, I almost feel like there was a drop off in some of the art, in some of the sequences here with the Avengers. Some of the line work doesn't look as clean as we're used to, I guess.
Yeah, you're talking about like the funeral scene.
Yeah, the funeral scene, and going into the graveyard. It just looks a little rushed, I would say. I don't know if that's the case, but I feel like those first 4 pages with Madame Hydra are a great continuation from Steranko's first 2 issues, and then there is a little bit of a drop off here.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. I haven't been reading up on the background of these issues at all, so I don't know, but it's probably been noted somewhere. I think that Steranko himself may have inked these first few pages. And then the rest of them are Tom Palmer, who is great, but this is kind of early in his career, so maybe he hasn't quite found his footing. So once we get to the Avengers pages and the pages with the funeral, you're right. It's very different. It's not at all what we had before, and so those are probably the Tom Palmer pages
Yeah, and it's not bad. It just doesn't quite mesh with
with what
what
had
we've seen
before.
from Steranko.
Well, it also didn't help that the person who was inking Steranko in those other issues was Joe Sinnott, and like there you go, one of the top inkers there. That's gonna say something for sure.
I did like the tribute from the Avengers from Nick Fury. And going into Cap's reappearance, well, it kind of came out of nowhere. The
It
two
really
splash
did.
pages are just so exciting and nice to look at.
Yeah, it really did come out of nowhere. It's like there wasn't even a hint that Captain America was nearby or watching or anything, and he just comes right out of the blue.
All this, yeah. I mean, it would have been nice. Obviously, we knew he wasn't gone.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice to have some sort of inkling or early appearance from him. But yeah, all of a sudden, there's this huge on page 328, 329. There's this great two-page spread, but it's just, yep, there he is. He's back in there and kicking butt while Nick Fury gets lowered into his grave.
Yeah. There are two double-page spreads in this one issue, which is pretty amazing. I mean, the other one isn't really a double-page spread. It's the huge page of Captain America on one side and Rick Jones on the other side, kind of leaping from an explosion. You could kind of call that a double-page spread, but I like how it's mirrored. All of the panels on either side are mirrored. Another really, really cool design choice.
And page 331, 15 of the story is probably one of my favorite Captain America pages ever. Just such a great iconic image there.
And there's some Eisner influence here, placing all of the words at the top there and taking good use of the again of the negative space around with the moon. Yeah, just bang up job from Steranko. Really, really nice stuff.
In terms of the secret identity stuff, they kind of I guess I don't know. It does, the plan doesn't ever really make sense to me. At the very last line here is Captain America has a secret identity once more. But his whole supposition is that they won't quite know who is under the mask.
Right.
It doesn't really get rid of the problem of people knowing who Steve Rogers is, as we'll see. But
I think I think his plan was to make people think that Steve Rogers wasn't actually a real person. It was just a fake identity. And so when they saw the mask, the fake mask, it was like, oh, okay, I guess Steve Rogers wasn't really a person. He must be somebody else.
So he inflated a rubberized figure.
Yeah. Okay, well, we can keep on going over to issue number 114, The Man Behind the Mask. So here's Sharon Carter. We do get to see her again here, but she is wrought with grief over Captain America's death. She does not know that he is back. And this causes her to kind of act really brash. She takes on AIM all by herself. When Nick Fury tells her not to, but she just goes on and does it because she just needs to feel alive or something. I don't know. But anyway, so Cap and Bucky race to help her and get caught up in all of the goings on with this giant robot that has like pointy hands.
The walking stiletto, yeah.
The walking stiletto, that's right. A great name for a great robot. And this one is drawn by John Romita. And in one of the episodes, in my Spider-Man episode 3A, we talk about Romita because that's when he takes over after Ditko. And he does his best to kind of mimic Ditko's style so that there is not as much of a huge continuity gap between artists. And he does the same thing when he does some issues of Avengers as well. And then he does it here too, because I really, really feel like he's trying to do a lot of things that Jim Steranko would do in terms of just his, if you go to page 347, just the fact that there's a lot of white space on that one panel. Some of the poses that he would do are like on page 349, which is page 11 in this one. Captain America with his big boots swinging out of the panel there is a very Jim Steranko kind of a pose, and I feel like he's trying to mimic Steranko a little bit to ease us into the issues that he is now going to do here.
And I don't know who the color is on this one, but yeah, there's some faces that aren't flesh colored. There's some like page 345, you see Sharon in blue, and you see her in page 348 in yellow. So there's still some of that dynamic there. But yeah, I would say it's a good blend of Kirby and Steranko. I think Romita is obviously trying to make it flow a little better, but some of the faces I would almost think they're Kirby. Like on page 355 towards the end of the issue, definitely some Kirby-esque poses there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. And this one is embellished by Sal Buscema, who's fairly new in his career, I think, at this point in 1969. So yeah,
I thought it was funny that no one thought to tell Sharon anything about Steve's plan, and it kind of backfired on them. So she just kind of stormed in there.
Yeah, that seems to be how S.H.I.E.L.D. operates, though, as we found out in the first half of this book as well.
Yeah, they have a habit of sending Sharon off and not being able to reach her,
or just not telling the plan to everybody.
Yeah, she went off to Wakanda or whatever, and it just she gets herself into trouble here. Yeah, and I don't know about the walking stiletto, kind of a similar robot to
the man killer.
The man killer. Yeah, just kind of an excuse to see Cap punch some things. But,
yeah. Oh boy.
As far as the secret, I probably keep harping on it. I shouldn't harp on it so much, but the secret identity stuff where he seems to have problems like getting a hotel room or getting any sort of, you don't have luggage, you can't stay here, who are you? It just seems like he has no life whatsoever. No help in his life, which maybe that's how S.H.I.E.L.D. operates, but it's kind of sad.
Yeah, they didn't help him out at all. But I mean, I think he kind of went rogue on this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, if you're not going to follow the rules, then you're on your own, kind of a thing. But even the Avengers didn't help him out as well. I mean, Panther blatantly says, "I know exactly that is the way that Captain America walks. I can tell. So that's definitely Captain America." But they're not rushing out to help him. They're like, no, he's gonna do this on. He got to do this on his own.
Yeah, you'd think he'd have a place to stay there, but he gives his last $10 at a seedy side street hotel, as they put it. So, luckily, the Red Skull comes along in the last page to get him out of there.
Red Skull to the rescue.
Yeah. Yeah, so speaking of the Red Skull, in Captain America 115, titled Now Begins the Nightmare, we see the Red Skull toying with a captured Captain America as he tells his story of recovering the Cosmic Cube. Rick searches for Cap as the Skull transports him around, and eventually the Skull summons Sharon Carter right after the two switch bodies.
And this was illustrated by John Buscema. I forgot that Romita didn't do both of these issues. One was John Romita, the other was John Buscema. So another big name contributing artwork to this volume here. And this one is embellished by our pal Sal Buscema. So we get the dynamic Buscema duo here. And this one was good. I really enjoy body swapping stories. So once we get to that kind of climax at the end here, I think I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all in for this. But the lead up to it as well is fantastic. How Red Skull uses the Cosmic Cube in a way that we haven't really seen yet, because we've seen the Cosmic Cube already before. But this one is like, he's placing Captain America in all of these really trippy universes or dimensions, and he's shrinking him, and you don't know if it's like in his mind or if the cube is actually changing his body proportions or the size of the room, or it's pretty cool, this whole sequence.
Yeah, he's definitely put in the cosmic and cosmic cube, and the overarching plot feels like a continuation of what we saw in the Kirby run in the first half of the book, but there are some definite 60s psychedelia influences, maybe Steranko influences here. The on page 377, page 18 of the story, the sequence there at the bottom with the cap heads kind of
right out of
going back to
Steranko.
normal size, and then the way Sharon Carter is shaded in that smoke coming out of his eyes. Just some really cool imagery there.
Totally. Yeah. I think that there's definitely some Steranko influence, and I think that's you're gonna see that in any of the books that Marvel was producing around this time, because those Jim issues, they made such a splash that all the artists were like, how can I get some of that in my book here?
Mm-hmm. And it's something unique for we saw Captain America age and get old, but I think the switch here, as we'll see in the next couple of issues, puts him into some unique predicaments that kind of tests his intelligence more than anything.
Yeah. We get a cameo appearance from the Teen Brigade, whom we haven't seen for a very long time. Their appearances get fewer and fewer as the years go by.
Yeah, and poor Rick is just kind of forgotten in these last few issues here in the second part of the second half here, as we move on to another sidekick eventually. But he's just kind of agonizing over the disappearance of Cap, and he's saying, why am I being ignored, basically, and it's pretty sad.
It makes me wonder if Rick Jones really was Jim's idea, and then once Jim left, like nobody, because we have such a rotating cast of artists here, I have to imagine that Stan Lee was definitely the guy behind everything that was going on in these stories. But yeah, he wrote Rick out pretty quick. And is it the next issue, I think, that maybe Rick's last one? I think it is. Yeah, so issue number 116 is called Far Worse Than Death. And this is the one where Captain America and Red Skull have fully exchanged bodies here, and Cap is pretending, or Red Skull is, he's pretending to be Captain America and making his escape, while the Red Skull, who is actually Captain America, is being hunted by the police. There's a great car chase scene, which I feel like car chase scenes are hard to do in comics because you don't get that real sense of motion. But Gene Colan, who's the illustrator for this issue, does a really, really great job with his motion lines and following the action so that we get a very, very, actually, I think, really well done car chase scene between the Red Skull and the police officers.
Yeah, it is kind of funny to me to see it's Captain America, but the Red Skull driving a car, and escaping that way. It's a fun issue. I mean, you've got the car chase scene, you've got the Avengers, who obviously don't believe him that he's Captain America, but
it's the whole classic. It's not me, and it follows all of the tropes that we know in this kind of a plot situation, and it does it really, really well. And the whole time the Red Skull, who is posing as Captain America, is watching it all through the cube. What I found really interesting is that Captain America makes his escape. He's walking down the street, and this woman says, or the little girl says, "Mom, isn't that Captain America?" And her mom says, "It certainly is, dear. Take a good look at him, child. That's one man with soul." And so which is funny because this is an African American family here, saying that's one man with soul. So the Red Skull, thinks to himself, so this is how it feels to be a hero. And he says, the adoration of unthinking masses may be flattering to some, but as for me, it isn't their affection I want, it is their servitude. The strong alone must be master and all other slaves, just as the Führer decreed 2 decades ago. So that shows us that he's not simply trying to win over the masses. He still wants to control everybody. This is his game.
Yeah, it's nice to have those moments, and I think there's a couple more in the next few issues of Red Skull. Kind of, he does take advantage a little bit of the situation and kind of enjoys the fame, but the menacing grin on his face the entire time as Captain America is pretty fun to see, and it definitely I don't know how familiar you are with Ed Brubaker's run, but there's some similarities in terms of the cosmic cube and the use of that,
Oh yeah.
and restoring the memories and all that. But I do think it gets dragged on a little bit in these issues. I think Red Skull probably enjoys toying with him a little bit too much, but there's certainly some fun moments.
Yeah, it's interesting because it goes in a different direction now, and we're going to meet a new character in the next issue. And Captain America is still in Red Skull's body, but that really isn't the plot anymore after
Hmm.
this issue. That's not, it doesn't matter at all. So it was, while they didn't resolve it, they keep that story going. It's interesting that they do drop that aspect of it. So yeah, you want to go on to the next one?
Sure. Captain America 117 is called The Coming of the Falcon. And after being teleported to the Isle of the Exiles, Captain America finally thinks of taking off the Red Skull's mask and ends up meeting a new character called the Falcon, who has been hired by the Exiles and is currently stuck on the island.
He's not called the Falcon yet.
No, I don't even think they call him Sam Wilson at this point. I think they introduce him formally in the next issue. But...
That's right, yeah. So this Sam Wilson gets kind of more of a fleshed out origin story later, but he's one of these characters where, if you asked me what's the origin of Captain America or Iron Man, I could tell you, but the origin of Falcon, I don't know what the origin of Falcon is. So this was kind of neat to see these issues and see how they work together. In this one, Sam actually just saves Cap's life, not knowing who he is because he looks like, I guess, Red Skull under his mask. That was actually another thing that I was surprised at, that they showed us his face. I think this is the first time we see Red Skull's actual face, and it's just kind of normal. It's a little bit almost disappointing.
Yeah, and it does kind of weaken the prior issues a little bit for me. It kind of just makes me wonder why. I mean, obviously he didn't realize. I think it's page 411 where he says, "Hey, I just realized something. It's actually a mask."
Yeah, you couldn't tell.
Yeah, you couldn't tell while you were being, chased and fighting the Avengers and everything. It just kind of weakens a little bit of that for me. But
yeah, or you couldn't tell that your face was like really sweaty on the inside of this probably rubber mask.
Yeah, and he does kind of say, well, I'm going to use some clay to change this face. So I don't know that we still see technically the Red Skull's real face. It's a clay disguise apparently. Very true. But yeah, I don't think the Falcon honestly has that great of an origin. He's just kind of there on the island because the Falcon, he has a Falcon, and the Exiles hired him. So it just kind of seems slapped together a little bit. And maybe they weren't intending for him to be quite such a long-lived character. I don't know if. I'm sure there's been some retcons throughout, to kind of give his background more depth. But,
oh yeah, there have for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously his costume has changed for the better as the years have gone on. But yeah, it's nice to see Sam show up and the final page here where he dresses up in his costume and they say the Falcon. It's pretty neat to see.
Yeah, you can tell that they are trying their hardest to make this guy kind of the next big thing by really, really pumping him up. In fact, the fact that Captain America isn't even Captain America in this issue, so we get a new hero. It's like, are we replacing Captain America already? Kind of a thing. And this last panel where we see the Falcon in his new costume kind of revealed at once is pretty much the same pose as the front cover. So the one commenter on Facebook who was like, the cover is kind of a silly cover. I think they were just trying to they wanted this iconic moment to be displayed on the front cover as well, but they also needed the villains and of course Captain America because it's his book. Yeah, what I really like about their interaction between these two is that we can really, really see why Captain America is a symbol and an idol. Because he inspires Sam to be a superhero, and he's not wearing his costume. He doesn't tell Sam who he is, but it's just his presence and the way he talks to people is just inspiring. It doesn't matter what he looks like.
Yeah, he's great at there's the little subplot here of the rebels on the island, but he doesn't take long to talk Sam into dressing up and becoming a superhero.
Yeah, and I love that. I just think Captain America isn't the costume; it's Steve Rogers, and that comes across even in this situation here. It's very, very nice. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, he does kind of, he calls it a gimmick, which seems a little insulting, but he says, hey, you'll need a gimmick.
Yeah.
You need to be a symbol, which is obviously something Cap knows well. So
And I guess that's contrary to what I was just saying as well, as Captain America is not a symbol, but he's telling Falcon that he needs a symbol, I guess just to maybe stand out or to make him shine above anything else, to prove himself or something. I'm not sure, but that is interesting.
well, I think symbols can be hollow or they can be meaningful, and obviously when there's someone like Steve Rogers behind the symbol, it means a lot.
Yeah.
And we've seen plenty of false Captain Americas in these issues, and
Right.
the Red Skull right now. So I think a symbol is what you make it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Captain America number 118, The Falcon Fights On. Oh, the last issue and this issue were inked by Joe Sinnott, with both art by Gene Colan. Gene is a good artist. I actually really like these issues here. We get a lot of, again, big panels, but what Gene is really great at is placing his camera angles and then and choosing his light sources. So we'll often get panels where the camera, the theoretical camera, is placed really low, and we get a lot of upshots. Or he'll find the unique ways so that the panel isn't just boring, straight on kind of camera angles. And then he has a brilliant command of shadows. He knows exactly where to always place his shadows in his panels, and I really really like his artwork. There was a period when I was first starting out in comics that I wasn't so keen on Gene Colan, but his stuff is really good, especially when he's inked here by Joe Sinnott. Good stuff. So this story here, this is kind of there's a lot going on. So let me see if I can boil it down here. The Exiles are trying to find the Red Skull because they think that they're after him because the Red Skull betrayed him, not knowing that this is Steve Rogers. Meanwhile, Steve is training Sam into how to be a good fighter, and that's going to play up in the next issue as they come head to head with in this issue as they come head to head with all of the Exiles.
Mhm.
And at the same time, Red Skull, posing as Captain America, is trying to discredit Captain America's name by just being a jerk to his fans. And this is where Red Skull's ego comes into play, because he could easily just do whatever he wanted because he has the freaking cosmic cube. But instead, he's like, nah, I'm going to make Captain America look like a moron by spouting off my mouth in front of his friends. It's like, I think the Red Skull should have placed more importance on the greater mission, but he was too much of an egoist to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him in the past couple issues, kind of as Captain America, tossing around the cube carelessly, and it kind of gets a little out of control here. And we also, on top of all that, we have another glimpse of AIM and MODOK trying
Right.
to get the cube back, and it's kind of, which feels a little out of place. I mean, it's just, I think it's been 1 or 2 pages so far in these issues, but it does pay off eventually.
Sort of. I mean, I think that's kind of what we call a Deus Ex Machina, where the
Right.
problem is solved by just something that's out of the control of the main characters here. It's kind of dumb, I think, at the end. And that's in the next issue, so maybe we'll save that for the next issue.
This is the one where we see the last of Rick here in issue 118,
Yeah,
where
right.
he says, "So I'm done." Captain America or Red Skull just ignored him, and they say, "Well, go check out Captain Marvel issue 17 if you want to see more of Rick."
Yeah, and so that's going to be, actually, he stays in Captain Marvel for a long, long time. He has a way better career over there. I don't know if you call it better. It's actually kind of not great for Rick there either. But yeah, he becomes a regular character over in Captain Marvel. Yeah, Gene Colan is really, really good at these action scenes, and I love the work that he does on, let's see, page 438, on page 16 of the story, where I guess Chang pulls up a gun, and it's like
Mhm.
he's got some great foreshortening on the gun there, and as he pulls it up over his face, and the dynamic pose of, oh man, what's the guy with the metal arm? I can't remember his name. It's not Krusty.
It's Iron Hand Hauptmann.
Oh yeah, Iron Hand. How could I not remember that? But yeah, I mean, I love it. They take on these guys, and it reminds me of earlier in this volume when Captain America and Black Panther are fighting, and they work so well as a team because Captain America is a good leader, and Sam Wilson is proving himself to be very intuitive. He knows how to play to Cap's strengths, and based on, I guess, what Captain America was teaching him as well. So yeah, a good battle at the end here. And I can't remember, is this the last we see of the Exiles?
I think it is. And I was just going to say, we'll see a lot of Gene Colan in Volume 3, so I'm glad you like him.
Yeah, good. What are your thoughts? Do you like him?
Yeah, I do. I don't think I don't think he stands out to me as much as the other artists in the book.
Right, certainly not.
There's not that individuality, but like you said, there's a lot of solid framing, and he does mess with the panel layout and make that a little bit more exciting than Kirby for sure. But yeah, I've always respected Gene Colan, but I would never say I'm a big fan. Just kind of more along the average lines to me.
Well, in the next volume, I know that he gets inked by Dan Adkins, and that actually takes away a lot of the stuff that I like about Gene Colan. So we'll have to talk about that when we get there, because it's not as great as Joe Sinnott here inking him.
So the last issue of the book, issue 119, is titled "Now Falls the Skull," and finally getting frustrated, the Red Skull transports Captain America and the Falcon to his castle and transforms everyone back to their normal selves, and a battle for the cube begins. And finally, we see the results of MODOK's plan to get the cube back.
So this is classic villain. Actually, Red Skull does a classic villain stuff all the time in these ones. One of them is like, I don't need to see the Exiles finish off Captain America. I'm just gonna not watch that. He turns away. And then another one is like, I can't kill Captain America when he looks like me. He needs to look like himself so that he understands the meaning of defeat. And so he turns Captain America back into Captain America. And there you go, shield and all. I don't understand also if you can change him back, just don't give him his big weapon.
Yeah, it does feel very kind of radio drama-esque, I guess.
For sure, yeah. I think you're just not supposed to think about it.
Yeah, it's definitely James Bond villain explaining the plan and making it too easy to escape kind of thing. But you got to get all the pieces back together. You have to have them back to the way they were. And it is nice to see Steve Falcon's reaction to realizing who he's been working with the whole time.
Yeah. Now, in this issue, we also get a couple of pages of, is this the one with MODOK's backstory? Yeah. MODOK, out of nowhere, MODOK decides to explain how he survived the events of Tales of Suspense number 94 when we think he dies, and it's a terrible explanation. And really, like I said before, MODOK serves no purpose here. The only thing that happens of any interest or any note is that the cosmic cube melts at the end of the issue, which our heroes never find out who did it or why it happened. It just happens.
No, they just kind of think they're lucky stars and say, well, I don't know how we did that, but with a little help from fate. It's unsatisfying. It's just, I mean, you have a few pages in the prior issues of AIM and MODOK just kind of plotting, but it doesn't really connect for me.
Yeah, me neither. At least on the other one where it dropped to the bottom of the sea or something like that. That's better, I think, in a sense. But yeah, so I'm hoping that, I mean, I haven't read these next issues, so we'll have to see. Maybe MODOK comes back with another cube, or I don't know, something happens. We'll have to see. You've read these issues, so you know if that happens or not.
Yeah, it's been a while. I read them when the Epic collection first came out, so I'm due for another reread before we discuss them. But yeah, I would say, this sequence, there's a lot of great moments in the body change story or the body switch story. Yeah. But I if I'm comparing it to some of the earlier Kirby arcs from this collection, I'd got to go with like the Sleeper or the some of the other stories that he wrote in there with the fake Captain America, that kind of thing. In terms of just comparing the two, I think the Steranko sequence stands out obviously for me, but there's some great moments. I just don't think a lot of the secret identity stuff and the cosmic cube stuff really sinks home as much as it should.
I think that's also just kind of the nature of 1960s comics as well.
Right.
And so we have to take that in stride. But I thought, as a whole, this book is very enjoyable. And I said it before. I found the first volume while it had its exciting moments, it seemed redundant and it was a little bit of a drag. So to have the action and the story kind of just the pacing ramp up a bit, have the stakes a little bit higher, I think that I enjoyed this volume as a whole quite a bit. I liked it.
I did too. I think if you're buying the book expecting to see a lot of Falcon, you'll be disappointed given that he's on the cover.
That's true, yeah.
But obviously that's something in later volumes that you'll get a lot of. But I don't think you can go wrong with Kirby and Steranko and Colin and Buscema. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Totally.
And then there's some good extras too.
That's true.
The Not Brand Ek issue and a lot of good original art packed in here.
Yeah, so the Not Brand Ek issue is pretty funny. You have to kind of really put yourself in the mindset of 1969 to understand all of the pop culture references, because it's basically like an issue of Mad Magazine. If you were not really if you were not totally invested in the era, you would not understand pretty much any of this. And so I actually did a podcast episode on this issue of Not Brand Ek, number 2 or number 3, and or have I done an episode on this? I know that I'm pretty sure I did. But anyway, you just really need to know a lot about the political figures of the time, or what movies were out, or what people were listening to in music, and to really understand all of the references. Because if you just look at it at face value with the goofy drawings and whatever, I think a lot of people get turned off by it, but it's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in the line of those Mad Magazine or Cracked kind of parodies, and it's just it's a lot of pop culture references.
There's a bunch of bonus, like original art pages, photo stats, and original art, and there's some really cool stuff in here. Covers that have been changed, like the cover to 198 says Black Panther at the bottom, and the final version says Panther. I didn't realize that on the cover of number 100, there's actually a shadow of Baron Zemo in behind all of those characters that was taken out to kind of clean up the look of the cover. So that's kind of neat. I would have loved to see some of Steranko's art in here, but there's actually no Steranko original art in this book at all. It's all the Colin stuff or Kirby stuff.
Yeah, and I do like some of the notes that we get to on the borders of the pages. Just it's funny to think of someone giving notes to Kirby, but or to Stan, but there's some really neat glimpses into the process here.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's always appreciated when they throw in stuff like this.
And I honestly think the cover rough or sketch is gorgeous. The John Romita one of issue 114.
Yeah.
Being colored in, and you can almost use that as a cover by itself.
Yeah, I really like the color. Yeah, the color rough, because it looks like it's just marker, but it's got such a nice style to it because of that. It's rough. They call it rough, and it really is, but it looks awesome. Okay, that is our episode for today. We're going to continue on with our Captain America journey and go right into epic number 3, which is called Bucky Reborn. Now, this epic is now kind of hard to find, so hopefully you have a copy, but if you don't, you'll have to read the issues on Marvel Unlimited, or check it out on Comixology or something like that. Or I'm sure there are Captain America omnibuses you could buy. But we're going to take a break over Christmas, so we won't have any episodes for the next couple of weeks, but we'll be back in the new year with some more Captain America with our buddy Drew.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kurtis, and I can't wait to talk about those issues.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about them as well. So all of you who are listening, I hope you get some good reading time in over the holidays, and we'll see you next time.